Welcome, everyone. My name is Dr. Sunil Pai. Thank you for joining us. We have a wonderful show today. Anybody that plays sports, that watches sports, that has a family member or a child that plays sports, this is a show for you. You don't want to miss out because we're going to be talking to Riley Cote, a former NHL player here, hockey player, world famous, and we're going to talk about CBD, which is a very, very important topic of the day. But first, I want to just invite all the listeners to remember to come and look at Sanjevani.net and join us at the Food is Medicine retreat here in Curacao coming up August 5th through 11th. It's going to be an all-inclusive, wonderful health vacation with the leaders and experts in the field. Myself, Maureen, and Robert Scott Bell is going to be one of the presenters. We're going to have plant-based diet, organic foods. We're going to talk about recipes, Ayurvedic medicine, nutraceuticals, stress reduction, how to make quick foods at home, all the wonderful anti-inflammatory healing properties of foods and information, as well as a little bit of R&R on the wonderful Wellness Island. If you don't know what Curacao is or where Curacao is, please go back to the archive and listen to, we have a full episode, Curacao, the Wellness Island. So today is a great show because we have Riley Cote. And Maureen, can you give a little introduction to our special guest today?
Sure, I'd love to do that. Riley Cote is a former professional left-winger in the National Hockey League. He spent 4 seasons with the Philadelphia Flyers, where he was well known for his role as an enforcer. Upon retiring from the NHL, Cote founded the Hemp Heals Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting hemp as a viable, renewable resource that can help increase the quality of lives for all people. Cote also sits on the Pennsylvania Hemp Industries Council Board. As a co-founder of Athletes for Care and as one of his NHL League ambassadors, Cote continues to pursue his passion to help athletes discover safe, non-toxic ways to find relief, manage pain, and achieve a better understanding of self-healing.
Welcome, Riley. How are you doing today?
Doing well, thanks. Thanks for the nice intro.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about yourself, how you became a hockey player. I know you're from Canada, so tell us a little bit about growing up. And it's not many people get to play in a professional league. This is kind of the dream of probably every boy and girl who plays sports, is to be actually on the ice or on the field or on the court. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you're at.
Sure. Yeah, I was certainly blessed to have lived my childhood dream of playing in the NHL. But like any child in the middle of Canada or Canada abroad, everyone wants to play hockey. Everyone wants to play in the NHL. It's just kind of ingrained in the culture. So starting from 4 years old, 5 years old, you're playing organized hockey, pond hockey, hockey outdoors. Doesn't matter where you can get the repetitions in on the street. Everyone's playing hockey, so it's just kind of ingrained in the culture of kids in Canada from the start. Again, growing up in Winnipeg, I played all my youth hockey there, and just was able to move up the ranks. Eventually, moved away to junior hockey when I was 16 years old. I was never drafted. Obviously loved the game, wanted to continue to reach my goal, and eventually I found myself in the pro ranks, in the lowest level of the pro ranks, and that was when I kind of decided to change my angle and my approach to hockey, and is when I took on a different type of role within the hockey game, more of a physical role, and engaged in some fisticuffs over the years. But certainly growing up as in the middle of Canada, playing hockey, loving hockey, I didn't expect to find my way the way I did. But life is interesting that way, and when you're driven and you want something so bad, you're willing to do anything. I think that's where my role change landed up happening, and thank God it did.
So after you played for a while in the NHL in Canada, and then you came to the United States and coached, is that correct?
Actually, I played my NHL career was in Philly.
It's in Philly.
So my whole pro career was actually minus a couple months when I was in St. John's, Newfoundland, was in the U.S. So last 16 years I've been living here. I retired in 2010 from my playing days I retired into the coaching ranks, and I was coaching the Flyers minor league team the last 7 years.
Wonderful.
So I was able to stay in sports, stay involved in an organization that believed in me, and obviously I was loyal to them as well, because they believed in me and gave me a chance to wear the orange and orange and black. And so for me, it was a no-brainer and an opportunity to transition to something outside of playing, which was very demanding on my physical body and, and my emotional and spiritual well-being.
Wonderful. And today, our topic is unique because we're talking about cannabis or CBD from hemp, two different sources. And, being a professional athlete, this is coming into play more recently as of January 1st of this year. The World Anti-Doping Association, called WADA, which is the organization that looks at drugs, right? Drug testing for Olympics and sports and athletes, athletic fields. They actually approved the use of CBD, the cannabidiols, particularly coming from hemp that doesn't have the THC component, for use. And so I know that you're a big advocate and user of both. And tell us a little bit about how and when you were introduced to cannabis or the use of CBD or the combination, and what brought you to use that. Because obviously back then, if you used it earlier, it wasn't as popular as it is today, or actually made possibly even legal, or many people were using it recreational in their professional uses.
Exactly, yeah, and I got introduced at a young age, at the age of 15, in a very recreational setting. There's no question it was in the name of recreation at parties and whatnot. It wasn't until I moved away from home and played junior hockey when I started consuming cannabis, and I say resinous cannabis. I don't use the word marijuana, but I like to use the word cannabis or resinous cannabis to understand that side of the plant when I'm talking about my cannabinoid use.
Right.
I didn't really understand the therapeutic values of this till I started consuming cannabis by itself, without other recreational drugs like alcohol that really fog out the spirit of cannabis. So once I turned pro, when I started engaging in a different role and fighting regularly, I was, it was in a whole other league of inflammation, pain, and anxiety that I'd ever faced before. Now I was fighting guys on a regular basis of, 230 to 260 pounds, 6'4", 6'6", all the way to 6'8" type guys. So you can imagine the type of inflammation impact and anxiety that would, bring on to the average athlete, let alone, a fighter within a sport. So, that's when I really started understanding, the therapeutic value and the healing properties, but quietly kept it to myself. There's always a group of us that, would consume, not knowing any science behind it. It was, something that I just did because, again, it was medicate that way or medicate with alcohol and other pharmaceuticals, which I did land up getting wrapped up into. But thank God cannabis was there to kind of, bring me some balance and ground me out a little bit, where I was able to sleep at night and, you know what I mean? And actually, jumpstart the recovery process as good as I could, with the tools that I was using. So, fast forward, my 8 years of professional hockey, spent 4 years with the Flyers. I was able to live my childhood dream of playing the NHL. And, again, I was fighting. I've been over 250 fights.
So it's almost like I would say it's hockey and boxing together a little bit, because it's a rough sport. I know when I see.
Yeah, hockey wasn't physically demanding as it was. I added another element of physicality in there. I signed up for it. As the nature of the beast. I knew what I was doing.
Right.
Since I didn't know the long-term repercussions of how I would feel in 8 to 10 years. I realized that when I was 28, my physical body was breaking down. But I consumed cannabis the whole way through. It wasn't really till I got, find my way to the NHL, and we started traveling via plane, when I started, being a little more cautious of my travel with cannabis. And that's when I would, leave it behind, and I would kind of, resort to the status quo of muscle relaxers, pain pills, and sleeping pills. And
right.
I think that's when, the beast started swallowing me up, and, my performance dropped. I was never the same. I was still using, cannabis when I was back home and everything, but I think I got wrapped up in that, substance abuse cycle of, thinking that those pills are okay because they're legal, and it's absolutely not the truth. I can attest to that from experience. And the long and short of it is my physical body broke down. I had to make a decision. I retired at the age of 28. And that's when I really started understanding the nutritional profile of the hemp seed, to start understanding different cannabinoids, specifically CBD. And that's when I started getting into cannabinoids derived from industrial hemp plant, which is, under different laws than medical or recreational cannabis, depending on the state you're living in. So that's when I started understanding, the full plant, and not just, the resinous or the medical side or the recreational side, understanding hemp as a nutritional, food and a resource, as well as, again, the cannabinoids derived from hemp, which, I consume daily still. And I really attribute my mental health to these cannabinoids during my playing career as well as my post career, getting these cannabinoids in me and understanding the science behind the neuroprotective properties of these cannabinoids. And it really, now the science is really kind of justifying and backing up my belief system. So it's pretty refreshing, actually.
And one of the things that we like to use in our clinic, and what I use professionally, is we use CBD from hemp, so that we can avoid, for certain patients, we're in a state where we have medical cannabis for cancer patients and patients with chronic pain or other issues, which is very helpful. And I'm a specialist in that area as well. But, in general use for more of our wellness, for inflammation, for healing, we use, a brand called 5ETA. You can go to 5ETA.com and you actually can learn more. But 5ETA is now, it's organic, it's full spectrum, it's clinical grade. And we use 5ETA because it's something that we have had really, really good clinical outcomes with, and we don't have to worry about other aspects of the THC and the controversy. It's really, really safe. It's really effective, and we'll have further shows, and we'll talk about that. But if you go to 5ETA.com, you can learn about the tinctures of CBD. Again, 100% free THC, full spectrum, organic, clinical grade, and more importantly, it has the terpene profile. One of the things I want to just mention is real quick is that many people are afraid of cannabis and the dangers. And I want to just cite some data and statistics, because when we look at tobacco use, like cigarette smoke, 480,000 people died last year smoking cigarettes. Okay, alcohol, 88,000 people died of alcohol-related deaths. When we look at opioids, the opioid epidemic, 64,000 people died last year. And most of these opioids, unfortunately, were prescribed and picked up by pharmacy or distributed by pharmacy. So people were taking this for a minor incident, and the refills got in, and drug companies were pushing it. Gun-related deaths, 16,000 people died, and even car accidents, 40,000 people. And when we look at cannabis and CBD, there's no related deaths so far, unless someone has a secondary aspect, right? So it's very safe, it's very effective, and so we want to get over the myth that people are worried about. Oh my God, am I taking something that is, we were considered to be worrisome, that it was cannabis or just say no against drugs. But again, 64,000 people died last year from prescription opioids, and wonderful even musicians that we all know and cherish for pain control. They did take these things and they overdose very simply. Yep. So there's no respiratory depression that can occur with the use of cannabis, or more importantly, when we use CBD from hemp. So it's a great, great natural, effective healing aspect. And so what we'll talk about when we come back from the short break from our sponsors, please listen to them and please support them. They allow us to talk about these wonderful topics, is that we want to talk about how did Riley Cote use CBD and post, and now where he's going in the athletic world, is why are athletes now more pro CBD, and even musicians and famous politicians, we'll talk about them, how they are now interested in this wonderful healing plant. And we'll talk a little bit more about what is the endocannabinoid system and what exactly is CBD after these short messages.
All right, perfect. All clear. Good segment.
All right, everybody, here we're on Facebook Live. We are talking with Riley Cote, and former NHL hockey player. We're here with Maureen and Riley. We're talking about CBD and healing and the healthy aspects and kind of dispelling the myths. So, Matt, whenever you're ready, we can start, I think, right? Is there anything else you want to say, Maureen?
I'm very interested in the Hemp Heals Foundation. So
okay.
Come back. I'd love to talk to you a little more about that.
Sure.
Okay. All right, Matt, whenever you're ready, we can let me know.
All right. It is saving probably a couple more seconds here. All right. Finished. All right. So here we go. So this will be segment 2, 12 minutes, starting in 4, 3, 2.
Okay, everyone, welcome back. We're having a wonderful discussion here with sports and the use with how do we use CBD and cannabis for healing, particularly CBD from hemp that doesn't have the THC or the psychoactive components. We have a special guest today, Riley Cote, former NHL hockey player. As you can see here, I'm in the hockey rink giving you all who are seeing here on Facebook Live a good feel. We were before the break, we were talking about how are you using it, and I was kind of dispelling the myths of there's no danger with the CBD. But explain to us or give us a feel of how many. I think it's underestimated how many athletes truly use cannabis, and now that CBD from hemp is available now almost in every single state. What do you think? Do you think more people are using this now than they had before? And before, when they're using cannabis, it's probably secretly, and now things are a little bit more in the open?
Yeah, I think the number is significantly higher than I state publicly. I always say like at least 50%. I think it's much higher now. I mean, I look back at when there was zero education on this, and there
Right.
was zero market for CBD, and how many guys were consuming cannabis then. And, in the business of sports, I mean, you're in the business of managing pain, you're in the business of managing anxiety, you're in the business of managing sleep, and that's the recovery process. So you can get up the next morning and practice and do it all over again. So guys are always seeking ways to manage their pain outside of what the medical protocols are, whether from the team or from the medical establishment in general. So I think guys realize they've been fundamentally misled, and that's why they've always been seeking alternatives. And guys are run the risk of ruining their careers because they want to medicate sustainably. They don't believe in this opioid model. I mean, it's a terrible, terrible, destructive thing, and you see it over and over and over again. And guys get swallowed up in this beast, and then you mix in alcohol in it, and then
Right, the alcohol, the tobacco, and then the other prescription drugs that get passed
all
along
these
or
things. These are
mixed
all
up
legal
there.
substances. And I think
Right.
again, the overall model of health
Right.
is completely ass backwards. I mean, you talk about a bad model. This is not healthcare. This is inflicting addiction and
Right.
disease.
And I think, as we say, it's disease management rather than disease
I
resolution.
mean, everything we do promotes disease. And if you want to, get back to the nitty gritty of nutrition, I mean, you talk about, Schedule 1 substances or scheduled substances that are highly addictive. What about refined sugar? We talk about substance and addiction. I mean,
Right.
I think we've kind of just like forgotten that we're human beings and we need
Right.
to live sustainably. But once you start inflicting addiction, you create public health issues.
Right.
And then now we're panicking. We got an opioid crisis. We got just an overall public healthcare crisis. We got obesity, cancer, diabetes, and we're just consumers. We just more is more is more is more. And we've been fundamentally misled. And now we're, guys are looking for solutions. We want sustainable solutions. We want to be told the truth. You know what I mean? And these alternatives should be legal for all people to use, not even just being legal as an alternative. For me, in the business of sports, you're protecting your investment. So you should be getting your players on sustainable forms of managing pain and anxiety and sleep. Otherwise, you're going to have a bunch of athletes that are hooked on pills,
Right.
opioids specifically, and Ambien. You see an Ambien crisis. People struggle with sleep, and the rest of it. You can throw all of them in there, really. I mean, but cannabis or hemp, derived cannabinoids, non-psychoactive ones, can replace all that.
Right. And I want to kind of review real quick for the listeners is that we have an internal system called the endocannabinoid system. And these are receptors that are predominantly found in the brain. They call CB1 receptors and CB2 receptors, kind of also more in the organs and the rest of the tissue in the body below the neck, although there's a mix of the two. And these are internal endogenous receptors where when we get the cannabis or the CBD from hemp, for example, it's like a lock and key mechanism. And one thing that's kind of coming out in the literature, and there's a lot of studies now that are happening understanding these receptors, it's not a simple on and off switch. What it is, it's about upregulation and downregulation of a variety of factors. And so it helps stimulate immune regulation, and that immune regulation provides an anti-inflammatory benefit. It also helps with healing and repair. So neurodegeneration and a traumatic brain injury. Later on, we'll have I think a former member of the NFL, Marvin Washington, I believe, part of your organization, Athletes for Care, on the show as well. So we're going to talk about traumatic brain injury. So a lot of people, we are getting hit, we're all getting banged up. When we move people to a plant-based diet, an anti-inflammatory diet, everybody, again, remember, inflammationnation.com to learn more about an anti-inflammatory. We give things like bosmeric-sr for lowering the inflammation, which you've tried yourself, and thank you very much for that as well. And also using, when you use the CBD from hemp, it has a synergistic benefit. We're looking at how can, as you mentioned before, sustainable, non-addictive, helps with lowering inflammation, helps with healing, repair damaged tissue. And so this is really key. Now,
and keeping the brain clear, and also for the gut, we've got to think about the gut. I'm sure it's very difficult to play when your gut's all screwed up from traveling and eating strange foods in each different place. Really, we've got to look at the entire system.
Absolutely. I think there's a really lack of focus on the gut specifically. And from what I understand, I think that's our main brain.
Right.
I think brain feeds our actual brain, brain up here. And, you are what you eat is the oldest saying on the planet. But I mean, if you keep, ingesting dead foods and processed foods and refined sugars and heavy metals and chemicals and stuff like that, I mean, you're only feeding, the body, the brain, just a bunch of garbage, and all those things promote inflammation. And if you look at it from, like you said, like from an inflammatory standpoint, especially as an athlete, but it doesn't really change from the general population. Is all we're trying to do is manage inflammation, get the inflammation out. So it's a constant state of repair. And in the business of sports, I mean, you're under the microscope of removing inflammation and managing pain and sleep, so you can actually perform at the highest elite level you possibly can the next day. Because once your performance drops, guess what? Someone takes your job. So I mean, it's very, very precise in the sports world. When you talk about inflammation and stuff, because we talk about, I mean, guys, all kinds of anti-inflammatories, but they're all synthetic and they're all destructive to the liver. But if you can crank in, the turmeric root and the black pepper and the cannabinoids derived from industrial hemp and all these good anti-inflammatories, I mean, that's the way we should be sustainably managing inflammation. I mean,
because the way I look at it from a physician standpoint, and we take care of a lot of athletes and professional performance sports people, is that it's always about who can recover the fastest so that they can train more, and that's what makes them a better athlete. It's the downtime is what puts people behind, because recovering from the injury or just the playing itself and the training itself is so intense.
Right.
So
that's exactly it.
What sort of foods would you recommend then for athletes? Are you plant-based?
I am mainly plant-based. I'll never claim to be a vegan or vegetarian. I think, sustainably farmed meats has its place, but I mean, I'll go, 2-3 weeks without any sort of animal protein at all. I mean, as far as protein content goes, I mean, I'm consuming a high percentage of my protein is digestible hemp seeds. Right. I don't even do the hemp protein powder. I just go right to the hemp seed because of the digestible protein source. But the omega-3 fatty acid profile and just the overall nutrient dense food that it is. But as far as food goes, I'm getting back to the basics, more plant-based. I mean, I think we can substitute some of these refined carbohydrates and that we consume mindlessly, and some of these synthetic electrolyte drinks that are made with basically tap water and high fructose corn syrup. I think we can replace the way we do hydration with actually some, real nutrition, real electrolytes. I mean, I think we're getting there, but even from when I played my first couple years pro, there was zero focus on nutrition. It was just basically calories in, calories out, focusing on macronutrients. I think now it's evolved, and they're actually talking about, at a cellular level, actually nutrients, and, every calorie should be nutrient rich versus just an empty, calorie, empty carbohydrate that's, it can give you energy, but it's not sustainable energy. Just looking at everything more from a sustainable standpoint, where you're looking at this as it's a mini sprint right now. Yeah, every day is a sprint, but it's like you want to play for an extra 5-10 years. You don't want to be like me and retiring at the age of 28,
right?
Because again, I wasn't sustainable the way I did. Most of my behaviors weren't sustainable. I mean, the cannabis was great because I think it grounded me and helped me maybe not go down the deep dark path. But there's certainly a lot of things I could have done a lot differently, and that's starting with alcohol. I mean, you talk about after games. Why are we going and drinking alcohol after games? You talk about
like
the opposite of recovery, right? We're trying to promote rest and relaxation and not dehydration. So I mean, a lot of these different things that we've done over the years, because we're ingrained in this culture of play hard, party harder, and drink beer and wash away the pain. Well, yeah, it's great in theory, except for what happens 10-15 years down the road is you have an addiction.
Right. It makes beer companies very successful.
Exactly.
And financial profitable.
Here and now, because it's the parties now, and you're playing professional hockey, you got money and blah blah blah, and all this great stuff. But then once the game is over and the career is over, no one gives a crap about you, and you're on your own. Now you're stuck with physical ailments and treating whatever injuries you got. You're also dealing with mental health issues and addiction issues. Like good luck getting out of that downward spiral.
Right.
And once you're out of the spotlight, no one's focusing on that. No one's following you.
No one cares.
You are on your own. You've got to figure it out.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think with all these industries, not only just athletics, but Hollywood and anything else like that, it's like they use you, and once you start to tarnish a little bit, or you're no longer the top of the game, someone else is there. They'll replace you. They trade people just like trading cards and stocks. They drop it if it loses the value. So it's very unfortunate, because we want to look at how we can improve people's health with using natural compounds. So again, I want to reiterate with everybody that a professional NHL hockey player, uses a plant-based diet predominantly. So we're looking at, lowering the inflammation. He understands the microbiome, understanding protein, fiber, antioxidants, phytonutrients only coming from the plants, and that's anti-inflammatory, as we talked about before. If those people who are new to the show, go back and listen to the anti-inflammatory diet, plant-based diet episode in the archives. And so tell us a little bit about your Hemp for Heals Foundation, and also the Athletes for Care program.
Yeah, so when I retired in 2010, I kind of realized I was having an awakening, and realizing that I needed to change a lot of things. And that was when I really started understanding the digestibility of the hemp seed protein, and again, the essential fatty acids and the trace minerals and the rest of it, the fiber, the whole bit. And I really started changing my approach on protein. I was so obsessed with protein, but I was mindlessly consuming dead, whey proteins, which is essentially
pro-inflammatory waste product.
Exactly. It's I think it's the end product of the cheese industry that's grinded up into powder. And you talk about inflicting inflammation. I think started realizing all that.
There you go.
From the nutritional profile of hemp seed, I started learning about the history of hemp and learning, the value of the crop in its entirety, learning about other cannabinoids. And I just kind of had this vision of, hemp heals. Like, this is a healing plant, not even just for the physical body, but for the environment, for local economics. So it really landed up being 2010. There was no legislation in the state of Pennsylvania or federally. So it was really a pipe dream of getting hemp into the mainstream. So it was just we started off with our main event, still our main fundraiser, is the Hemp Heals Festival. It's just we have a music festival every year. It's our 7th year we've been doing it now. And again, it's an education, awareness, and just kind of showing the different faces of hemp, and whether it's a food product, whether it's a textile or a clothing article, whether it's a body care, skin or hair care product, with some hemp seed or CBD in it, depending on what it is.
So
the whole bit. So just it's evolved, morphed from that into we're still doing the festival, educational stuff, hempcrete workshops.
Wonderful.
Hemp paper making workshops, stuff like that, just to, again, change the way we view what cannabis, even it's a variety of cannabis, hemp is a variety of it, just kind of showing you the face of this plant, because we've been kind of fundamentally misled into not understanding the whole plant. And most people don't realize that, hemp is illegal because of marijuana, not the other way around.
Right.
The THC molecule, even though it scares a lot of people, that's really not public enemy number one. It's just business on the other side of it is interfering with pulp and paper, cotton industry, synthetic fibers like nylon.
So Riley, hold this thought, because after this short break, we want to get into a little bit of the history of CBD and cannabis and why it got misaligned or malaligned. Sure. And then we'll talk a little bit about Athletes for Care.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. Hold on. We'll listen to the short messages from our sponsors.
All right, good. We're all clear.
Okay, everybody here, we're on Facebook Live with Riley Cote here, former NHL player.
Hey, so we're still live on Facebook.
Yes. Anything you want to say, Maureen?
No, I think this is really interesting. I'm sitting in a giant field of hemp. There's so many uses for hemp. It's really interesting to discuss all these things.
I think you should discuss that on the show.
Fear. Yeah, we definitely need to get over the fear of, the weed.
Right.
Taught to be afraid of.
Yep.
Okay.
And, here at Sanjevani, we have so many different people, all walks of life, coming in to use CBD for their pain and sleep and all kinds of things.
We'll talk about some of the health indications that it can be helpful for. And also, Maureen, I want you to talk a little bit more about, the hemp plant itself, like you mentioned in the background, so we can talk about like the clothing, the fabric, flags, car seats and Fords were made with it, Bibles the paper was made with it. So I want you to talk a little bit about those things.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we ready?
All right, ready to go? All right, so here we go. This is segment 3, starting in 4, 3, 2.
All right, we're back here with Riley Cote, former NHL hockey player, an advocate using CBD from industrial hemp and also occasionally cannabis for health and healing. We want to talk a little bit about Athletes for Care. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved with that organization.
Yeah, so just with my passion of natural healing and alternative healing, when I retired in 2010 and started the Hemp Heals Foundation, it really kind of trickled down into there's all kinds of different opportunities and people kind of reaching out to me, and with my background in sports, and I've seen a ton of alumni guys banged up, and again, they're pill poppers or they're heavy drinkers, and they're trying to manage their pain and stress and anxiety unsustainably in a really destructive manner. I've seen all these things happen, and I realized I understood cannabis enough. I understood the cannabinoids and the terpene profiles of these plants, and I really wanted to make a difference where I think normalizing, legitimizing cannabis and industrial hemp derived cannabinoids through sports. I think we all have our duty as as athletes and people on this planet to use your platform, to do make positive change. And I think joining forces with other athletes, we had I've been doing a tour of speaking on panels at different cannabis conferences, talking to different athletes with a lot of the same experiences, how they use cannabis, how they use these different cannabinoids now currently, and we just kind of came together. It was 4 or 5 of us that said, why don't we just make an organization revolving around being a resource to help guys, current players, but really focusing on the guys transitioning out of sports and the retired athletes, the guys that are that retired because they had an acute injury that they had to retire because of, and then they're stuck with this injury, and they're stuck with this addiction that they developed because they managed their surgeries with opioids or whatnot. A lot of these guys have identity crisis and purpose issues because, again, ego has been involved their whole life, and they've been known for their hockey abilities or whatever sport they play, and everyone knows who they are, and all of a sudden, just like that, everyone forgets about you. It's the young bucks that are coming in. No one cares about you. And now you're left with no identity because your identity's been your job as a hockey player. Mine is as a fighter within the hockey game. Right. And then all of a sudden it's like that's gone, and now what? You're stuck with a physical body that's broken down, generally mental health and spiritual ailments, and you're stuck with these unsustainable tools in your toolbox. You know what I mean? And so for us, it was just like, we got to promote this cannabis, like heavy, and cannabinoids from industrial hemp, more of a nutraceutical standpoint. Right. All preventative. We're really focused and hit this on the head as far as preventative measures, preventative medicine, preventative, prevention of injury.
And I've seen that in the Athletes for Care, there's a large number of professional athletes. Do you mind giving a shout out or naming some of them for the listeners to know, like, the variety? Because what I've seen is just a variety of sports, from basketball, football, volleyball, surfing. I mean, you name it. So it's not just one type of player.
No, it's been really contagious too. I mean, once we kind of put ourselves out there and got kind of on the circuit of speaking publicly on this, it's just like athletes are kind of, reaching out to us and want to be involved because they see the unique opportunity here to, again, speak on behalf of cannabis and cannabinoids derived from industrial hemp very, very positively. So we got guys from hockey, obviously, but all the way to UFC fighters like Frank Shamrock and Boss Rutan, to former football players, Jake Plummer, Eugene Monroe, Evan Britton, Jim McMahon. We trickle into all our sports. Basketball, we got Floyd Landis, who's on the circuit for the Tour de France. I think he won it the one time. But all guys that have experience using, whether it's resinous cannabis while they're playing, or on the back end of it when they're retiring, and or the CBD side of things. So all these guys have similar type experiences. We want to get those stories out to the general public and collectively, because I mean, it's I think a lot of people have lost faith in the medical establishment. I think people have realized that we've been misled. And, I think a lot of these athletes can speak from experience. I know it's all anecdotal. It means nothing in the science world, but, people like you and people that understand the science behind it, we need to, join forces with. Right.
And one of the things, on the science part, there is a lot of studies that are coming out because this is a hot topic. It's a hot field of research, although it was illegal for even studying the plant, the cannabis plant. That's why there's a delay in the research behind the use. Okay. But now at least we have in animal studies, and actually in certain patient studies, we have benefits with acne, we have benefits with heart disease studies, we have benefits with diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, colitis. So everybody has gut issues. Remember, CB2 receptors are in the tight junctions in the GI tract. So CBD from industrial hemp or CBD, like the 5-ETA product that we use, is a great kind of thing to take when it helps with calming, lowering the leaky gut. It helps with healing and restoring that. PTSD, for anybody that has PTSD, almost anybody that serves in the military, unfortunately, can have that. Coming back from a war, and traumatic brain injury, seizures, MS, multiple sclerosis. Great research on the last three. And for those who've never heard or new to cannabis, you can actually look at CNN had a 3-part series called Weed 1, Weed 2, Weed 3 with Sanjay Gupta. It's a good place to start off understanding the misunderstanding of cannabis and cannabis use and how it's moving now towards more legalization in multiple states and more actually pushing into the research, showing how much this is changing. Just this week, I don't know if you heard, but John Boehner, one of the former Speaker of the House, extreme conservative, joined joined an advisory panel for one of the largest cannabis companies in the country.
Last person I ever thought would get involved in that. That is
right. He swore about it would never do
math, right? He started doing
math, and everybody's going to have a family member, a child, a grandparent, or themselves that eventually will have one of those conditions that I mentioned, unfortunately. And what can we do to help heal them and get them to go back to stimulate their innate ability to heal? This is what the cannabidiol CBD does. Remember, CBD is a variety. There's
vital substance for our body. We need them in our body.
Right. There's hundreds of compounds of CBD. So it's not just one single compound. And you don't need the THC aspect. THC can be used for nausea and chemotherapy, extreme pain, insomnia. It also can help with stimulating appetite. So for those issues, the cannabis used directly from the plant itself or from the medical cannabis dispensaries can be very helpful for cancer patients or patients with specific conditions. But there's a shift now. We're moving to using the CBD, the cannabidiols from industrial hemp, for the wellness aspect, that to help with anxiety, insomnia, again, the ambient epidemics, the SSRI epidemics. It's like the ADHD epidemics. The idea is like, how can we give something that is generally safe and effective, and people can always start low, go slow, and then slowly titrate up. We use sublingual tinctures, and that's one form. But I know, like, even with 5-ETA, that company, if people go to 5eta.com, you can learn that we're actually in process of looking at developing wellness products like organic teas with all the natural electrolytes. So we're not using the fluorescent colors, we're not using the toxic artificial sweeteners and GMO ingredients. So these are things that sports player, wellness people working out can use. Vitamin shots, all these things will be coming in the future, because this is being preventative is key.
Yep. No, I agree. I mean, it's a huge market for these products. And I think the biggest thing is, and I am for the THC molecule. I think there's a place for it.
There's a place for it, absolutely.
In the medical realm, and I also think there's a place for it in the spiritual realm. But in the sports market, and just in the everyday wellness and preventative market, I think cannabinoids should be consumed daily. I mean, I think this is something like much like the model of a daily vitamin. I think it's like really a daily or multiple times a day getting into cannabinoids into your body. And I think once we start looking at it that way and consuming these products on a daily basis and really looking at it as a wellness tool, I think, again, this market of, we don't have to get that sick to go to find the silver bullet and magical bullet type of thing. I mean, I think we're looking for a solution, a simple solution is what we're doing. I mean, instead of like, we're waiting for pharma to come up with this magical blue pill that's going to cure us of our cancer. We're looking and taking that direction over to medical cannabis, which I'm not sure that's the right approach to it. I think we need to prevent these things from happening on the front end of it, using things as preventative, preventatives, and managing our stressors the right way, managing our anxieties the right way, and managing our sleep. So the trickle down effect on the back end is we don't get so sick where we're just all unbalanced and just all over the place.
And the key is really, again, going towards lifestyle changes, dietary lifestyle changes, anti-inflammatory plant-based diet, stress reduction, using bosmeric-sr. One of the things that we recommend with all our patients is to help keep their immune system up, right? So getting sunshine or taking a little bit of vitamin D, taking glucan 300. Those people who understand that glucan 300 is the strongest, most natural and clinically tested. Now we have 4 comparative studies comparing to all the glucans on the market. It's still the strongest, most effective in vitro and vivo studies showing the effectiveness of keeping the immune system strong. And now adding CBD from industrial hemp, this is another thing that we can do daily. It's just like making your breakfast, making a smoothie. You know, every time you learn a new ingredient that has more nutrition, nutraceutical aspects to that, it's like, why not make your food the medicine rather than taking medicines, right?
Yeah.
And
What a noble concept.
right. And that's why we're having this food is medicine retreat, everybody.
Exactly. I mean, he said that like 3,000 years ago, didn't he? I mean, we're trying to reinvent the wheel with business, right?
Right. And also, Maureen, you can talk about that. The hemp also has a fabric part. There's a quality of industrial hemp in an industrial standpoint.
Yeah, and going beyond, I think it's very important to make sure that we are using sustainable, organic, no pesticides, pesticide-free products. So when you talk about industrial hemp, it's kind of an interesting word because it kind of conjures up an idea that, that it's just grown, mass produced everywhere. But I think it's really important that we talk about sustainable agriculture and making sure that it's organic and we're not using pesticides, because who wants to consume hemp or that's been sprayed?
Yeah, there's a lot of problems right now with the legalization and the general cannabis use in the recreational markets in Colorado and other states, where they're growing more than they can dispense and use, and so therefore people are, as a cash crop, they're using herbicides, pesticides, Roundup type of products, and that's toxic. So we want to look at, when we look at products like 5-ETA or other companies, you always want to look at the certificate of analysis. We want to look at pesticide, herbicide free. We want to look at mold and contaminant free, and you want to look at terpene profiles. And so after the short break, we're going to talk about a little bit about the terpene contents. What is terpenes? And also other aspects of what we can use CBD for, not only for health and healing, but also for wearing wonderful clothes. We'll be right back after this short break.
All right, perfect. Good segment. All clear.
Okay. All right, everybody. We're on Facebook Live here with Raleigh Cote. Maureen?
This is a nice hemp shirt right here.
There you go. Pennsylvania. Yeah. I want you. Yeah, we'll talk about it because I want to show. I want to show people like clothing,
Absolutely.
paper products, bags, and when we look at the, we'll talk about this on the show, but when we look at the legalization of growing it, then we have like farmers growing that versus tobacco, farmers growing this versus GMO corn and GMO soy, like real products that they can spin into so many other industries.
Something positive that's not destructive. Everything,
exactly.
All systems seem
That's
to
too much to ask, or what?
Right.
Apparently it is. We've been fighting for this for almost 90 years, and we're acting like we're reinventing the wheel, and we're so progressive. But
right, yeah, it's funny, right? All right, Matt. Anytime you're ready, I think we can go to the last break or last section.
All right, perfect. All right, here we go. This is our final segment, 9 minutes, starting in 4, 3, 2.
All right, we're back here again talking about CBD, cannabinoids from the industrial hemp plant or the cannabis plant itself. One important part of CBD is what we call terpenes, and terpenes are these smaller compounds. And like when you think of like lemon, there's something called limonene in certain fruits, or black pepper. There's all these little compounds that make those food ingredients kind of more special, more active, more therapeutic. And the CBD
ingredients we use in essential oils.
Right. Absolutely.
Essential oils.
Got my lavender right here.
There you go. So when you look at these terpene compounds, what you want to make sure that when you get a CBD product is that you want to ask for the certificate of analysis, because a lot of companies will say, "Hey, we're from seed to shelf," and they'll talk about terpenes, but actually when you look at the certificate of analysis, there's 0 terpenes in there. And so we want to look at companies like 5-ETA and other companies that actually provide a full spectrum extract, which we're looking at, and we're not mixing it with other chemicals or other type of additives. It's just the CBD extracted correctly in a proprietary manner, and also adding some base hemp oil to that. So as before we the last break, we were talking about other uses of hemp, and you were showing a shirt. And Maureen, you can also talk about other things about how CBD can be used. or I mean, hemp can be used?
Well, hemp clothing is very comfortable. So Riley was showing his hemp shirt, which is
Antibacterial and antimicrobial.
Wow. So everybody at home, you're listening, he's wearing a jersey shirt. It says Philadelphia
Pennsylvania Hemp Project. It was just one of
Hemp
the
Project. It's like a great jersey. And so, we see handbags, we see clothing wear, like yoga wear, sports wear. Traditionally Bibles were made.
towels. Hey, maybe we can get sports teams to start using hemp for their uniforms.
That's exactly it. I think that's ultimately the model. I think the underwear market's already tapped into.
Right.
On hemp, again, the antimicrobial properties. There's a lot of MRSA and staph infection, stuff like that. So really removing that with those types of fibers is huge. But
And I like the feel of the hemp clothing.
Yeah,
it's
it really
super
is. Yeah,
soft. It's like a
breathable
organic
and
cotton
soft.
soft. It's like a thread count that you love to sleep in. You know.
Sure. And Maureen, you kind of mentioned it earlier as far as the environment and growing hemp for more of a sustainable way of doing agriculture. But if when I got into hemp heals, I looked at it like more as a global type of thing. It's like it starts with our environment. So if we start with a poor environment and toxins and chemicals and pesticides and all these different things that we're bombarding our bodies and immune systems with right off the bat, well, we're going to get sick. We've been poisoned in a sense, right? So if we started our industry from say with hemp or sustainable resources like wind, solar, all these free resources, essentially, like that to me is progressive industry, because we haven't sacrificed human health, environmental health, animal health, and the general well-being of our planet to make money. We exploited these resources to create these industries we can create with sustainable resources like hemp. You know what I mean?
And hemp is a transformational plant, right? It can absorb the toxins and transform them.
Exactly. I mean, exactly it. I mean, they're growing in Chernobyl to grow the contaminants. We actually had a pilot program last year through Lehigh University. We grew in an old zinc mine, phytoremediation, trying to grow the contaminants out of the soil. So,
everybody, there's so many uses of this plant. And what we're talking about before is that legalizing the growing of hemp, which will happen over time. Certain states like Kentucky, I think certain states are now approving actually the growth of it. Then it moves our traditional American farmers to farm sustainably. So they're not using chemicals, they're not using pesticides, they're not growing tobacco, which kills 480,000 people a year. They're using a crop now that can feed other industries, textiles, clothing, food, supplements. So it's a crop that brings back their traditional practice of farming. So let's help the farmers by helping move, talk to your congressman, talk to your senator, push the legislation in growing more industrial hemp, because there's a variety of things. And I think politically why it's so dangerous, because it does take away from alcohol sales, tobacco sales, pharmaceutical sales, synthetic industry, oil industry, petroleum product sales.
Sure.
And this is something that, we need to just get away from that. We need to look at sustainable from all aspects of health, as you mentioned before.
And
I agree. And that's the way healthcare will kind of take care of itself, is if you prevent the disease before it's happened. If you create this artificial environment of toxicity and a really a artificial diet. The American standard diet is artificial. We're poisoned. We're poisoned. I mean, that's what's happened here. It's that your body can only get out so much toxins. You know what I mean? You can only sweat out and urinate and wherever expose of so much toxins. Otherwise, it's build up in you.
Right.
And then you get sick. I mean, it just manifests itself differently.
Cancer. Yeah.
Exactly. So we're self-polluting. So getting back to the root cause of why we're so sick is we need to do industry in a sustainable way, so we don't have to sacrifice public health, to provide jobs. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, we can bring clean coal, back, whatever that means. Or we can take those exact, ideas and implement that and create jobs with the sustainable.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we can create jobs with anything. You know what I mean? You could package garbage, and feces into bags and create jobs that way. But does that make any sense at all? Why don't we do it the right way the first time? Eliminate this, this toxic environment, and then we don't get as sick.
Right.
But I understand the business model is set up this way. Politics is politics for good reason, because they're protecting
But we
their
can
interests.
all
Interests. I mean,
And
that's,
I,
that's
and
what
I
I
think,
we
and
can-
I would say to anybody who's listening that has a child that's playing sports or they're actually in the sports itself, they really need to take a look at this. You got to clean up your diet, you got to clean up the environment, and take things like this, like the Bosmeric, the CBD. I like the 5-Eta brand. That's what we use. Taking Glucan 300. And there's something that we didn't talk about here, Riley, but on a previous episode, we were talking about a unique ingredient. It's called Pure Black. It's a live resin. It's a shilajit product. And actually, it's great because when people actually take medical cannabis and they actually have too much, so they said sometimes when they go to the dispensary or they're using recreationally, they get too high or it's too strong of a strain. The Pure Black is a great, almost like an antidote. It helps actually bring people back down. And so we'll talk about that again. But those people who have forgotten about that, go back and listen to the Pure Black, the shilajit episode, because that's something that if you are a cannabis user or you're afraid, if I even going to take something that I might have a problem, this is something to have along to help counteract some of those side effects, as long as anti-inflammatory effects, immunological effects, and helps with tissue repair and healing. So what a great topic this has been. I think everybody should go home and think right now, do I know someone that is playing sports that's get injured, get them off the non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, no more ibuprofen, no more Motrin or Advil, no more Celebrex. Get off the alcohol, get off the anxiety drugs, get off the sleeping pills. Look at changing your diet. Riley here is a great example. He's been through it, from ground up, 4 years old, going all the way to professional league, now in retirement, helping other athletes, helping young athletes, helping the youth, helping the industry of growing industrial hemp.
That's what we need to do, is we need to look to our youth. We need to start with good, balanced diets, stop eating pizza and hamburgers and drinking beer after high school games. And, do you have any advice for mothers out there who are raising young athletes?
Absolutely. Is first of all get educated on all this stuff, understanding the brain injury and all that stuff, but also understanding that your kids will eat what you provide for them. Whatever you have in the house, they will eat. So I mean, if you start having a ton of fresh fruit around and cutting it up and having it available all the time, melon, whatever it is, pineapple, all the other fruit, vegetables, the whole bit, whatever is around that they will eat. So stockpiling your house with nutritious whole foods, to me is like the best thing you can do, because you lead by example. They're not going like
you have to lead by example. And we're running out of time, but it's been a great show. Thank you for joining us, Riley. I want to remind everybody that if you go to 5eta.com, if you go to sanjevanistore.com or cbdproducts.org, you enter the promo code PI, P-A-I, and you'll get a discount for listening on the show. Also, go to sanjevani.net and please take a look at the program itinerary and join us in Curacao, the wonderful wellness island, August 5th through 11th. And again, everybody, CBD, Riley Coates, go look at athletesforcare.org and also hemphealfoundation.com to learn more about the wonderful work that he has done and wonderful athletes are helping in their communities and the youth of today. So until then, until next time, everybody, thank you very much for joining us here on Take Back Your Health, and best of health.
Great show, guys. All clear.
All right. All right, everybody, we're still here on Facebook Live. So, Riley, I really appreciate you coming out. Is there any, we can talk for a little bit longer if you want to just give some shout outs or talk about anything else that, the Facebook community may want to hear that we didn't get to talk about on the network recorded show.
No, I think for anybody that follows me, understands my stance on all this stuff. So it's really educating yourself and taking ownership of your own health is what it lands up being. In a sense, being your own doctor, listening to your body and the red flags that it's giving to you. And those are signs, those are symptoms that something's wrong generally, and to fix it. So, I mean, going back to the diet, I mean, the plant-based diet or a near plant-based diet to me is the best way. I've never felt better. I mean, I feel better now than I did when I played.
And I'm so happy to hear that, because when we met first in December at a conference, It was in Vegas, and the food is horrible. Unless you're eating some vegan food or plant-based food in other hotels. And then I got to meet you, Marina. I got to meet you there, and it was great talking to you. And then I knew that you got it when you were like, "Oh, I'm going to go get something else to eat," and when it was like completely healthy. I'm like, he understands inflammation because not many people do. Then they hurt, and then they come back and they have like double cheeseburger and a milkshake, and they're like, "Oh, how come I hurt?" It's like, no, you got to understand your body's your temple. You have to treat it. You got to give it the pure fuel that's just correct and anti-inflammatory. It gives you all the phytonutrients, protein, antioxidants, and
absolutely
benefits. And so I was really happy when I saw that, because you're like, and then I think you brought some food. I think you were bringing a meal, and it was completely different than the rest of the people around you. And I was like, this guy has got it. He understands, like, how, because once you feel good, you never want to go back.
Exactly. That's what I explain to people. It's exactly that. It's like once you understand how good you're supposed to feel, you never want to go back. And most people never get to the point where they feel that good. So, for me, obviously discipline is a huge part of it. I think most people could tell you a double cheeseburger isn't as good as an apple, or you know what I mean? Or if you want to compare, something like that to a whole food, I think a 2-year-old could tell you that. Right. But the bottom line is we've been conditioned to accept the standard American diet and thinking that's okay, and they'll just fix the problem.
They're not selling a lot of apples at the hockey games here.
Exactly. So we live in a nation of industrialized food, and that's what it is. And discipline is hard when you're always surrounded by poor choices. So what I said earlier is like, as far as advice for parents surround your children with good foods, but that means that you have to change yourself. And most people just resist change. It's hard.
Right. And it's not only hard for parents. I think what happens is that we see Maureen and I, because she does a lot of the nutritional consultations, right? We have trouble because when we try to educate patients on eating healthier, their physicians are the same, right? So they're eating the cheeseburgers and the French fries and drinking and smoking at the lunch break. So it's very hard for the physicians are complicit in the patients not getting better because they themselves don't want to be the example for change. And I think I have a lot of admiration for athletes like you, and hopefully patients and people have admiration for what we're doing, because we have to lead by example. We just can't say do as I do and do as I say and not do as I do, like a lot of people in politics and a lot of people in the professional world. It's like, no, we have to say that we're real people. We have aches or pains. We have anxiety, depression, gut issues, inflammation, and we know now how to restore those functions just by taking more personal responsibility and also community responsibility of how we can help others as well.
That's exactly right.
Body clean, it keeps your mind clear. So that's a big part of dumbing down of America as well, is making sure that we're eating all that junk. So, let's clear our minds so that we can tune into our bodies and take back our health.
Right. And everybody, again, if you want to get a discount on anything that we've talked about on the show on the 5EDA products, go to 5EDA.com, enter the promo code PAI, or you can go to sanjevanistore.com or cbdproducts.org as well. I just want to give another shout out to Riley's organizations, athletesforcare.org and hemphealsfoundation.com. Again, don't go ahead and everybody, please take a look at those foundations, and we'll hopefully have some more athletes from your organization in future episodes so we can talk about different sports. Again, people have to hear this over and over and over, and I think eventually we'll start seeing CBD commercials during the game. So just as a beer commercial and a cheeseburger commercial, it'll be, because it's going to be something just like a Motrin and Advil, and I think that will be the turning of the public's awareness.
Absolutely. I don't think that's too far away. One of the minor league professional basketball leagues recently this year actually allowed CBD to be one of the main sponsors. So you're going to see really
wow. Okay, so it's already coming, folks.
Canada's won full legalization here this summer. It's going to change the landscape of all these cannabinoids. I think the cat's out of the bag. It's just a matter of how soon a corporate sponsor will be accepted into major league sports. I don't think it's too far. I don't think it's too far away.
No, I don't think it's too far away. And again, I want to stress, I think what Maureen stressed, what you stressed as well, but I always want to stress when people buy CBD products, even if it's or they're getting cannabis at a dispensary, they really want to make sure that you're getting organic organic, organic. Otherwise, remember, this is a crop. I mean, look at the wonderful background that Marine's in the forest, right? But a lot of people, when they grow it indoors, they're using chemicals, unfortunately. And not everybody's an organic farmer. Not everybody's a trustworthy grower. You need to make sure that if you're going to, especially when I have patients that go to the cannabis dispensaries, right, with the card, or they're using recreationally at home, I'm like, you got to make sure that there's no pesticides, herbicides, because those things, now that we're ingesting it, we're concentrating it, or we're vaporizing it, can cause toxicity and poisonings. And so we, just like our food, you want to be eating as much clean, organic food as possible.
We need to demand it and hold them accountable for it.
Absolutely. I think that, you know, what we like to do is, like, we like to align ourselves with dispensaries, number one, and companies that are checking and making sure that they're pesticide free, organic, herbicide free, contaminant free. But there's a lot of problems that, you know, since most people just go for, let me just find the cheapest thing on the web, or let me just get it from some, you know, dispensary that's maybe a couple of dollars cheaper per, you know, ounce or gram, whatever. Then again, there's cutting corners, and it's just like getting, you know, a dollar menu food. It's not going to have the nutritional quality or any quality for that matter.
Yep, there's a ton of snake oil on the market, and just like you said, if you want to compare whether it's cannabis or CBD derived from industrial hemp through the food industry, you got to seek quality. You got to seek, you know, the highest quality, the nutrient richest foods. In this case, you know, the most, you know, the cleanest cannabinoid profile, but as well as not the toxicity that comes along with it. If it's coming with pesticides and heavy metals and all that good stuff, you've taken a good thing and you've sold out a good thing to industrialize the product. So staying true to the integrity of what cannabis and hemp are supposed to be grown as is a sustainable crop, not an industrialized crop, which is, you know, the future of it is going to be that way. We just got to do our part and stay true to the organic and the properly farmed cannabis and CBD.
And how do you use the CBD for yourself? I know when I use it usually predominantly at night, and it's because I have trouble sleeping. My mind's always kind of going. I like to look at using that as a way to help just kind of relax myself, right? But it doesn't make me like sedated, or I don't feel weird, and I wake up, I don't feel hungover or like a sleeping pill. So it's a little bit of calmness, and it just kind of that nice little edge. And so most people, you know, I recommend it, you know, a little bit in the evening. But also when we have patients that have chronic conditions, you know, we give it as a sublingual tincture, and we recommend them actually taking it breakfast, lunch, dinner, and right before you go to bed 4 times a day, because it's about a 6-hour half-life of how long it works. They take the tincture underneath the tongue, they hold it for about a minute, and then they swallow it. So how do you take it? How do you use it, or when do you use it?
Yeah, I do the sublingual as well. I mean, I'll probably only do it twice a day, in the morning and generally in the evening sometime.
Okay.
But also, I'm a medical cannabis patient in the state of Pennsylvania, so I also include some THC throughout the day. So I think it's kind of layered throughout the day, where I'm constantly getting cannabinoids, but not all psychoactive. You know, a good chunk of them are non-psychoactive. So again, I just think, again, I'm thinking kind of like I'm trying to repair some of the damage that I've caused in my previous life, and that's, you know, getting punched in the face for a living. So I'm trying to, you know, knowing what I know about the, you know, the science behind it, I'm trying to.
And for everybody who's watching out there, just Google Riley Cote and then see on hockey, because it is a lot of punches in the face and a lot of fights. I mean, he was well known for more of the hockey ring boxing, because that's just the left wing, the hooker, you know, the chuck, and that's what we see. But it's true. All these sports are becoming more and more physical demanding, mental demanding, and how we can help repair and restore that long-term damage.
With the use of it too, I think it varies on the person. Like me, for example, if I take 1 drop of CBD tincture in the evening, I'm out. I sleep all the way through the night. I wake up in the morning, no hangover. I feel great, but that's all it takes for me is just 1 drop.
Some people are very hypersensitive to it. And again, from what I've learned is, you know, I've had the luxury of stimulating my endocannabinoid system for 20 years, but a lot of people have really never. Right. You know what I mean? The whole life, but maybe besides a little bit of breast milk when they were born. But
because remember
go for 15, 20, 30 years without ever having a cannabinoid in their body. So, you know what I mean? So sometimes people respond, we call it negatively or very sensitively.
And I tell patients, you know, usually we always start low and then we go slow. And the idea is that, again, it takes about 2 weeks once people start introducing CBD from the industrial hemp oil to slowly start taking effect, because the body has to recognize it. The receptors haven't, they kind of been turned down.
Exactly.
They kind of upregulate and turn back on, which is a great way to tell people. So I always tell people, don't just take a large dose at one time. You're not going to get the benefits. It's not going to be an instant fix. It's like fine tuning your immune system over time slowly, and then you'll get better and better, and you'll feel better over time.
Yep. That's exactly it.
I was thinking about when I was younger, and we used to grow hemp and marijuana, of course, and using it as a shampoo. And it was amazing how it made my hair grow.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all. I use Dr. Bronner's. It's the only shampoo and soap that I use is hemp-based.
Yeah. And you were mentioning also you like to use salves. So like, for just local rubs and aches. Yeah, we sell a lot of salves in our clinic because a lot of people, before they even take a tincture, they want to try something topically.
Exactly. It's less intrusive, and I can see that. But as far as muscle soreness and acute pain, they really do work well. I like to hit it both ways. If I'm really managing an acute injury, but even for like scrapes, I got 2 daughters under the age of 2.5, and scrapes and stuff like that. Some of these salves are really good. They're mixed with other essential oils and beeswax and olive oil, whatever else. But I mean, talk about really trying to promote healing as effectively as possible, and it's just again normalizing it. My kids are never going to know. They're never going to understand prohibition, because by the time they get into the teenage years, it's going to be
right. They're going to see commercials on television.
So it's
waiting my whole life for this. Yes.
You said earlier, is like the youth. If you teach them the right way from the start, you're not going to have to be like me, being introduced to cannabis in a very recreational setting, trying to figure this thing out myself. There's no manual.
Right.
I mean, anybody that's been introduced to street drugs before is just like, you don't really, especially when there's no information, it's just kind of like, they're all the same. You don't really know. You're not going to talk to your parents. Who are you going to talk to about advice? Is this healing? Is this not healing? You don't know that. You don't ask those questions. But now with the education, like, this should be just pumped into the mainstream and be like, this is the ultimate preventative tool. This is the ultimate anti-inflammatory tool. Anxiety. Everyone struggles with anxiety and stress and sleep. And once you screw around with those 3 elements, you screw around with sleep, like, good luck waking up the next morning and being fresh. And then you're chugging a pot of coffee, and America runs on Dunkin' for a reason.
Right.
Because we're unsustainable beings.
Right. That's why the Starbucks in every corner. That's why everybody gets on this like roller coaster of just like up and down, stimulant, sedative, stimulant, sedative.
Exactly what it is. And until you really find balance and understand these tools and use these tools to your advantage, you really don't understand what it's like to feel as good as you should, or to live sustainably. Because again, like you said, like we don't sleep at night. We can't sleep because we're anxious and we're stressed out. And then I get 2 hours of sleep. Then I got to wake up in the morning. And the only way to get through work is to, again, espresso after espresso and drink, coffee after coffee, just to get through the day. And then you got to go to, your kids' baseball practice and wherever else you got to go after work. And then you can't keep up with this stressful life. And then we drink alcohol after that. And then we have even worse sleep that night. And then, what I mean? You got to wait, it's just like, it's hard to get out of that funk.
On and on. Yeah.
And you're probably driving through McDonald's drive-through at some point there because you're hungry after you've been drinking and whatever else too. I mean, it's
so you just described that the typical average person's day, which is true. Like in every corner of America, that's how they set it up. So Starbucks, the fast food, the this, that, and on any corner in any place in America, and now worldwide. If you go to China, if you're in London, if you're in Bombay, it's all the same. And so again, everybody's industrialize our lifestyle, and so again,
all these products could be replaced with hemp. I mean, the milk that we drink, I make hemp milk every morning.
Yeah, we had hemp milk this morning. I put it in my wonderful organic coffee.
You could have wonderful hemp burgers. There's so many things. You could be sleeping on it. You can be drinking it.
Everything. Yeah, that would be my perfect world right there.
And I want to just make sure that everybody understands that the hemp seeds do not have the psychoactive component. So a lot of people are afraid, I'll go to the store. I can't, I don't want to try hemp milk or hemp seeds. I'm going to have psychoactive or test positive. Like, no, that's different. That's the seed component, has the fatty acids, has the protein, has the fiber, the phytonutrients in there. So hemp seeds are a great way to increase protein protein content, fiber content, help lowers your cholesterol, feeds the colon health. It's, prebiotic as well. So it's a great food source. You can great hemp milk. So again, avoid all the dairy products. Remember, we're not animals. We're not, we're older than 4. We shouldn't be drinking dairy at all. So this is a great way, the food, and then, support industries. So if you find a company that is making hemp clothing, it might be a little bit more expensive right now because it's a very young industry. We need to support those industries so that as the money starts flowing by how we're buying, how we're choosing, how we're, selecting, then that's when the shift will occur even more.
Exactly. Vote with your dollars.
Vote with your dollars.
I say all the time. And we're all dedicated to the education of this, and we'll continue to do so. So thank you very much for your contribution.
Yes,
No problem. Thanks for having me, guys. Good conversation.
And we're going to be doing more discussions of this CBD for those on Facebook Live in future episodes on Take Back Your Health. So we want you to kind of share this feed, share it with all your family and friends. In the future, we'll get more to specifics on the receptors and the conditions. I can get a little bit more scientific, but more importantly, we're going to get other people. So we have now NHL, then we'll get NFL, and then we'll get other types of sports people. Maybe we'll get a celebrity coming on board as well, because we want people to understand they're average people like you and me, and we all have different jobs, professions, but we all are humans at the end of the day, and we need to learn how to heal and help each other.
That's exactly it. No matter where you come from on this planet, stress is the same, anxiety is the same, pain is the same. It don't matter where you come from. So if we can all agree to that and understand that we're in the business of trying to take care of our own health and manage these things sustainably, we can all be in agreement that whatever tool Mother Nature has offered us and provided for us, that we should have access to, and we should be, consuming the highest quality of that, so we can all, live in harmony together. I think we just gotta get past that, where we gotta stop playing God with all this stuff and saying your condition's not worthy enough of this plant-based medicine and vice versa, and that whole spiel. We just gotta accept it for what it is. God, created. Put this plant on this for a reason. Wherever your God is, don't matter. It's not a religious thing.
Right. Mother Nature is kind, and I think where I have a lot of admiration for the sports people, because really sports industry is what influences the average American thinking of the public, right? They watch sports every weekend or every day and game night, and so many channels on their television is just sports related. So when they see those people who they look up to or they're always interested in, I think it's a great way to change public perception. We will work on the science aspect, so that we can fine tune some of the aspects, but I think really I appreciate people coming out there, stepping out of the limelight. Again, there's a little bit of still controversy in old people thinking or old ways of thinking and political thinking, but I really appreciate those who say, hey, this has helped me and this is how I can help other people. I think that merging between science and then social media and sociability of sports is a great way that the American culture can change to the positive.
Yep, I agree. That's why we formed Athletes for Care. Exactly that. Just kind of integrating these anecdotal stories and experiences with science, and then you can't deny the truth. You know what I mean? Story is a story, but if you've got science, well, now it's it's a verified story. So that's kind of what we're in the business of now, and just normalizing it through sports, and it really lands up getting, once we get into research and all that stuff, it's going to help the general public. We're not specific to just athletes. I always say everyone is an athlete, because everybody has to take care of themselves and take care of the recovery process. It's just called something different in the real world. It's just called sleep. It's just called rest.
Right. What I mean? It's just called living.
It's called living. Yeah. But it's more magnified in the sports world, because there's so much more focus and emphasis on those elements, because again, you wake up in the morning, you have to perform at a top notch, and you got to be the best you can be. Otherwise, again, someone's taking your job. So, I guess in the real world, it's the same thing. You're supposed to be, firing at top-notch performance, but I mean, most people are way below par. You know what I mean? Way below par, and they're just kind of hanging on. They're stressed out. We're trying to keep up in this rat race, and we just have a hard time juggling all these stressors.
So we want to invite you. So if you are free, you and your family, and if you want to come to a great vacation, go to sanjevani.net, and we'll, because you're plant-based, it'd be great to see you down on Curacao, the Wellness Island. Take a look at that. Maybe we can get a bunch of people from Athletes for Care to come down and just kind of drive a whole movement of people. We can add more lectures and more hands-on discussions, and just make it a fun place where people can share. Our goal is to really get people, like-minded people, to come to one place for a week and just be transformational, share, from all around the world, and using natural medicines, natural cures, natural healing methods, and food is the medicine. And we got to teach people how to really empower themselves, how to make the food the medicine. Because again, not through a drive-through window, but how do you actually prepare quick and easy, healthy meals?
And imagine vacationing on a wellness island.
I know, right?
Yay.
Right up my alley, exactly.
All right, guys. So this is it for this show. Again, thank you again, Riley, Cote, and Maureen. It's been great again, as always. We're here in the hockey rink and in the hemp field over there, and in Riley's home as well. Thank you all for watching. Please share this link throughout your social media. And again, if you go to any of the websites, sanjevanistore.com and 5eda.com or cbdproducts.org, enter the promo code PAI for a discount. And thank you for listening. Best of health, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Pleasure. We'll be in touch.
Talk to you soon.
Have a good day. See you guys.
All right. Bye-bye.